Hi, I'm Rod Cleef. Each and every week, I record an interview with a thought leader that I know you're going to get a ton of value from. Now, here on YouTube are the video versions of my podcast, Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing. Now, to make sure you get the latest information, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. Let's get started. Welcome to another edition of How to Build Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing. I'm Rod Cleef, and I'm thrilled you're here. And I'm pleased to interview my friend today, and he's my friend as he has come to my boot camp. He came to my LA boot camp. I have actually spoken at his meetup in Orange County, which I think came as a result of that boot camp. And his name's Kyle Mitchell, a great guy. Just got married as well, so we'll have to congratulate him on that. And he's closed on a 42-unit syndication. They have a 128-unit under contract right now. So we're going to dig into how he got there and what's next. Welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks for having me on, Rod. I'm really honored to be on your show.
No, it's absolutely my pleasure. So why don't we go back like we do on most of these interviews and have you talk about how you got started in this business and kind of bring us to present day.
Yeah, sure. So originally I was in the golf business as a regional manager for a golf management company. And you can liken that to almost a third-party property management company. Municipalities hired our company to come in and manage their properties for them. So that's what I did for a full-time job for about 15 years, managed about 20 million in revenue and 250 employees. And while I was working at that job, I just knew I had to put my money to work. And I had had a bad experience with the stock market, didn't really invest much in it, but just didn't have a good feeling about that. I wanted more control. So I started looking into, at that point, actually single family homes. Started reading some books, listening to some podcasts, going to some events. And so I started buying some single family homes, some in Southern California, but quickly got out of that market after realizing it's just not a landlord-friendly state and there's not a lot of cash flow out here. So I started buying turnkeys because I was pretty busy at the time with my full-time job. So I wanted something a little more hands-off, but I could still have a little more control over. So bought some turnkeys, got to about 9 turnkeys out of state, still have those, although I am starting to unload those.
Same city or different places?
3 different markets. I was trying to diversify a little bit and spread out my risk.
Would you do that again if knowing what you know now?
Buying in different markets or buying single family?
Turnkey, number 1, and buying those in different markets, number 2.
I would spread out my risk in different markets for sure, because actually one of the markets is just not doing very well for me right now. So the fact that I have 3 different markets has worked out. Buying turnkey, looking back at it, no. It's really tough to scale. And when you want to dispose of those turnkeys, they're really not worth what they once were when you bought them. Right. So,
right. I'm dead set against them, just so you know, which is why I asked the question. I really believe that the only person that benefits on those is the person that flipped the house and sold it to you. But so I'm really glad that you're in multifamily. Sorry I interrupted. Please continue.
Yeah, no problem. So I completely agree with you there now, definitely, even though I've cash flowed a little bit off of them, probably in the end of the day, wasn't worth it, but learned a lot. So at that point, tough to scale with single family homes, especially with turnkey. So I started looking for some alternative investments and found multifamily. So at that point, I had been looking into multifamily and hearing a lot of podcasts and happened to come to your event in LA that you had here. Prior to that, I was going to a couple of meetups in the local area, and there was one in particular who was one of your students and I think coaches now, Powell. And he started a meetup on multifamily, and there weren't very many around at that time. Now there's a ton of them. And so, got friendly with Powell, went to your event, and it was during one of the breaks, actually, that you said, get out of your comfort zone. Whatever you do, you've just got to get out of your comfort zone. And that's something that my wife and I now kind of live by. We do that 3 or 4 times a year. And so at the break, I just asked Powell, I said, hey, would you be willing to branch off with your meetup? Could I start a Long Beach chapter out here and go from there? And so 2 days later, he emailed me. He's like, are you serious about this? And I said, yeah, let's do this. Let's go. So that's kind of how I got started in multifamily and started the educational platform that we now have. So now we have, 2 meetups that we do. We're starting a 3rd one actually in Phoenix that I'm going to fly to and put on every week. And that's with that meetup group. So
wow.
It's really been beneficial for us and starting that educational platform. But the biggest takeaway I got from your event was get out of your comfort zone and start doing things that, other people won't do. And so from there,
Let me stop you there for a second. Let me
Yeah.
stop you there for a second. So yeah, so yes, Powell is one of my students. Awesome guy, and he's been instrumental in people starting meetups. And we are actually, I'm actually starting a nationwide group of meetups myself under the Lifetime Cash Flow brand, and it'll just be with my students. But we have about, I think, close to 20 different cities that are going to be coming online with that as well. So why meetup? So let me explain why this is a big deal, guys. This business is a team sport. It's about raising money. It's about making connections. It's the reason that so many people keep coming back to my events. Like, for example, my Denver event, I had 600 people there. 220 of them were previous attendees because of the value of connecting, of the value of those relationships, whenever you get a group of like-minded people together, certainly rising tide lifts all ships, but there's also a lot of money in that group. So like in your case, would you agree that putting on these meetups gets you in touch with potential investors for your deals? Would you say they've been instrumental in helping you raise money?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I would say half of our investors from our first deal were from those meetup groups that we built these relationships for a year on.
Right, which is why it's such an incredible vehicle. And so, guys, I don't care if it's a meetup group. If you're going to do this business, you have to have a way to establish reach. And you can do it through a meetup group. You can do it through a podcast like I did. You can do it through a Facebook group, YouTube channel, whatever it is, LinkedIn, whatever your Instagram, whatever your choice of vehicle is. In this case, Kyle's is a meetup group, and a lot of my students use the same vehicle. It's to get that reach. It's to get in front of more people. It's to add value. That's the key. You got to add value. And I know the reason you've been successful is because you add value. So please continue. I just wanted to hammer that point home on the value of creating reach through a group like that.
Yeah, 100%. And, attending meetups is a good thing, but being the person at the front of the table is even better, right?
Sure.
So it's been greatly beneficial for us for sure. So about 7 or 8 months later, I ended up leaving my full-time job. And, if you ask me, do I suggest that? Highly, I do not suggest that. But it was just a perfect time. I had been planning to leave my full-time job for about 2 years because I just knew there was just another way that I wanted to go. So I'd been saving up for a couple of years, and the opportunity presented itself. And so I took it, and I had the support of my wife, which is, one of the main reasons that I was able to leave my job and really pursue multifamily real estate full time.
Yeah. No, listen, I want to circle back to something you just said about front of the room. Guys, even if you're not an expert in this business, and I tell this to my students, even if you're not an expert in this business yet, start a meetup group, because you're perceived as the expert. It's like act as if, okay? And when you are the organizer of a group like this, people have the perception that you're an expert in the space, and you can bring in people to speak about the business. You can bring in brokers and investors, people like me. When I was in LA for 2 weeks with my wife, I had to go there with my wife or something. I think I spoke 11 times at different meetup groups. And it's an incredible vehicle. And don't hold yourself back just because you're not fully experienced yet. And so I want to encourage you to find your vehicle as it were. Now, so let's talk about these deals, Kyle. So you did a 42 unit syndication. Can you dissect that for us? How'd you find it? How'd you finance it? How'd it come together?
Yeah, sure. So about 2.5 months after I left my full-time job, we had been able to find this property. And at that point, I was actually driving to Tucson, which is about a 7.5 hour drive. We would leave about 2 in the morning, get there at 9. This would be on Lolita's day off, her only day off during the week. And
Wow.
We would meet with brokers, tour as many properties as we can, meet with local investors, and then drive back, get home about 1 or 2 the next morning. So on one of those drives, while we're calling brokers saying, hey, do you have anything we can come tour and see? One said, yeah, actually, I just got the keys to this place. I have no financials, no rent roll. Would you like to tour it with us? So I said, yeah, sure. Why not? And after touring it, we liked the property enough to start really digging in and doing due diligence. So we had about a 3-week head start before that thing went to market. And within a week of it going to market, we had it under contract.
All right, I want to stop you, because you're dropping some bombs here that I hope people are picking up on. So let me ask you, so Tucson is the market, yes?
Correct.
Okay. So before you went to Tucson, what did you do before you drove out there at 2 in the morning? By the way, guys, how many of you are willing to get up at 2 in the morning to go chase your dream? Okay. And I'm going to tell you, the people that are success in this or any business are the ones that are willing to do what others aren't willing to do. And Kyle, you just gave a great example of that. For me personally, it was knocking on doors of people in foreclosure when I was in my 20s to buy houses. But when you're willing to do what other people won't, you will be a success. So that's number one bullet point I want you guys listening to pick up on. But secondly, what did you do in advance of you going to Tucson? Speak to that for a minute.
Yeah, well, obviously we vetted the market, right? Obviously, and understood the market.
So talk about that with some detail. What'd you do to vet the market, buddy? I just want my listeners to hear it. I mean, I know, but yeah.
Yeah, is there population growth? Is there rent growth? Is there wage growth? Is there job diversity, which is actually one of the number one things that I look at now is job diversity. You really don't want a market to have more than 20% reliant on one industry.
Or one employer.
Or one employer, right. And so those were a lot of the major things that we looked at. And we also look in the Phoenix market, right? So they really pair well with one another. So we kind of look in all of Arizona. So once we got that down and felt comfortable with it, we started going out there just driving around. At that point, we weren't even looking at specific properties or trying to take any properties down. We wanted to get familiar with the market so that when a property did come up, we said, that's not an area that we really want to deal with. So we would talk to brokers and say, hey, what areas are B to C plus class that we should.
So you did this out there, or you called in advance of this?
Called in advance, spoke with brokers.
That's what I wanted to hear you say. So guys, you do not have to buy in your backyard. And what I'm trying to do is give you the framework of how you do this. You start really the best way, or one of the, in your case, you live close enough where you could go out there and drive around. But sometimes people are buying, 2 or 3 states away. And so you start these relationships over the phone. You call them about a listing. You find out who they are so that when you drive out there at 2 in the morning or you fly out there, you have appointments set up with these people to go tour their properties. You're not just flying blind at that point. Would you agree with me on this, Kyle?
Yeah, 100%. You've got to do some upfront work and build those relationships up front. But I do think the next step is getting in front of them face to face and showing them you're serious and getting out there in the market.
That is the absolute next step. And that's how they know you're real. So guys, if you're in LA or San Diego or San Francisco or Manhattan or some of these markets that do not have low hanging fruit and you're going to buy elsewhere, start by making those phone calls. Then you've got to plan a trip out there. Now, you're blessed, Kyle, because it is drivable. It's not pleasant necessarily, but it's drivable. Now, you're going to start flying now for your meet up there. But the point is, you've got to go there. They need to meet you. They need to see your integrity. They need to see your passion. They need to see that you're real, and then everything changes. So that's the progression. So you went, and you need, of course, to drive areas like you said. You'll learn, where you don't want to be collecting rents at night. You find out where the paths of progress are. Are there any areas gentrifying, businesses moving in, businesses moving out, all the above. Okay. So what happened next?
Yeah, at that point, we got the property under contract, which is fantastic. And started, going through due diligence and really building up the investors on what the deal was going to look like. We had a webinar. And started raising money. So actually at this point, this deal ended up closing, but we had some troubles with the lender and the lending environment. And I think this is something that you just don't know until you go through it. So I do think that taking action and just getting under contract and going was a huge benefit for us. And I learned quite a bit. And you can talk to as many people as you want, but there's just certain things you just do not learn until you go through it.
Agreed.
And so what we wanted to do, it was a smaller deal, 1.6 million, it's about $1 million raise. And so my wife and I said, hey, I think we can do this. We've been building our investor list for 18 months. We've got several people interested. We're going to go ahead and raise the money and sponsor this ourselves. So the plan was, if in 30 days we were not feeling very comfortable with it, we would bring on other people to help manage the property with us. Okay.
So let me stop you for a second. So that you did not have an experienced sponsor with multiple doors on the team, at least initially, or at all. I don't know.
Initially, correct.
Initially, okay.
Yep.
And was that the hurdle with the lender? They had an issue with the lack of multifamily experience?
No, not really.
No?
Our parents were going to actually sign on the loan, and so our net worth liquidity was all there. And it was a smaller deal. We were hiring a third-party property management company. Where it got tricky was when we decided, you know what, we think we can get there on the raise, but we're not 100% sure. So we're going to bring someone else to help manage this property with us, and actually someone with experience, right?
Okay.
And I had previously let the mortgage broker know that, but not in writing. And so they started our application with Freddie Mac a little too early, and we had already been underwritten as a group. So at that point, we were one day from being approved from Freddie, and they said, hey guys, you can't add another GP. You're kind of stuck. You're on your own. And for me, when you're raising money and you're using other people's money, it's important that you can deliver on the business plan. And if you can't raise all the money, you cannot execute your entire business plan. Something has to fall short. And we're not the type that are going to use the cash flow to then put back into the building and rely on cash flow to execute our business.
Let me stop you there. Never, ever, ever go into a deal with that mindset that you're going to use cash flow to take the deal down. I mean, to do your capital expenditures, your improvements to the property. Never, ever use cash flow. Just wanted to hammer that home. Keep going.
Yep, absolutely. So at that point, we were kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. Are we going to be able to complete the raise, or do we have to bring someone else on and go with a different lender? Because with a 506B, which we were doing, you can't meet any new investors. So we already know who we know. And so it's either go back and convince other people, or people who have already said no, or have to bring on someone else. So
all right, let me stop you again. I apologize because you're some of my listeners don't know what a 506B is. So there's two types of syndications, guys. There's a 506B and 506C that are most common. 506B, you have to know that person. You have to have a substantial relationship with them. So you cannot advertise. Like our deals that we do with my company is they're all 506C because you can advertise, but you have to use accredited investors. So what Kyle just said is once you've gone out to your pool of people that you know well and have good relationships with, if you're doing a 506B, you are kind of stuck because you cannot talk about that deal with someone new. And so, and it's really good that, you stayed on top of your integrity and did not take any chances with that. So tell us what happened next.
Yeah. So 29 days to close after we already used our extension, I actually pulled the plug on the current lender, which is Freddie Mac, and found someone that said, hey, Kyle, we think we can get this done. So it was a risk in the sense that we were moving lenders. Can you get it closed in 29 days? We went with a Fannie Mae loan. And so we also had to find someone who had experience, 2 years experience, to sign on the loan, because that's
So let me
one
stop
requirement.
Because you got it with Fannie Mae. Someone has had to have had a Fannie Mae loan before. So keep going.
Yeah, so we found that person through our meetup, that we had been building that relationship for 10 months. And then we also found another person who had experience that we brought on to help finish the raise and is actually helping with our asset management as well. So at that point,
let me stop you again. Sorry. Okay, guys, because you're saying so many important things, and I apologize. And I know I'm going to get some bad reviews because of my interrupting you, but I got to hammer home some things here. Okay, you cannot just raise money for a deal. Okay, so if you bring in someone that's raising money, they have to be active in the general partnership. And you made that very clear in that final, that they're doing asset management as well. That's critical. And if you listen to my podcast interview with Mauricio Raul, you will see, he's an SEC attorney, why this is such a big deal. Because there are a lot of people out there that think they can just raise equity for deals and get in on a deal, and that's the end of it. You can't. You have to be active in the deal. So I'm sorry I keep interrupting, but you're saying some things that need clarification so that my listeners get it. So
yeah, no problem. And that you can go down a rabbit hole on that raising money thing. And I think it's really important right now with all the people raising money for other deals. So it's extremely important. And so this other partner flies out to the property with us as part of the, rehab renovation program. They're on the weekly calls with the property management company. So 29 days, and we ended up closing, basically recording an hour before we had to close.
Wow.
And that was at the point of the year where all the interest rates had dropped. So originally with Freddie Mac, we were 5.01. We ended up getting a 4.2% interest rate, so an 81 basis point discount, which, we didn't plan. However, And I wouldn't do it again because it was just about the most stressful 30 days ever, but it ended up working out for everyone on the
That's
deal.
beautiful. Wow, what a huge drop in interest rate. That's
Yep.
that's a big deal. 80 basis points. And guys, there's 100 basis points in a percent of interest. So 80 is 80, 80% of 1%, 80 basis points. Love it. That's an awesome story. So now and so you see the value in this whole meetup thing. So you're going to do one you're going to fly there once a month to do these?
I'm out there pretty much every week, if at the very least every other week. So we're just basically building that into our schedule.
I love it, man. I love it, man. I mean, let's massive freaking action, my friend. I absolutely love it. So to talk to us about this 128 unit, if you can share. I know it's under contract. I don't know how much you can talk about it, but
yeah, there's not a ton I can talk about it, but what I can tell you how we kind of found it. And that was based off the same thing, broker relationships. Our business partners that we brought on were the partners that I brought on to the other smaller deal. And now we're working on getting more deals together. So obviously our network is bigger with that team. And so one of our partners had closed on 2 deals with this particular broker in that market, which is in Phoenix. And so now we have that relationship. So we got a little bit of a sneak peek, only 2 days, but we got a sneak peek with a couple other investors before it went out to market. So the day it went to market, we were there. And that's one of the benefits. And I'd really like to harp on this is if you're not sure what market that you're going to pick, try and pick something that is actually close in proximity. I think it makes it easier to get to, kind of like we were. Originally, we were looking at Columbus, Ohio. And so, there's the time change. You got to fly there. It's very difficult to get out there every other week. But if I have to be in Phoenix or Tucson tomorrow, I'm there. There's no problem. I can fly in an hour or drive in 5 or 6 hours.
So let's talk about, what was your core job? What line of work were you in before you quit?
So I was a regional manager for a golf management company. And so the biggest thing there is I managed people, right? And so once you close on a property, I think that's what you need to be really good at. And so I take that, and it's really been a streamline into apartments. We have to manage the property manager. We got to make sure they're hiring the right people. We need to make sure they're implementing the systems in order to be successful in this business. And so I just take my experience from the golf management world and relay it to real estate management is how I see it.
Okay. All right, good. Tell me what you do about your self-talk.
Yeah, self-talk is a big thing with me. And, I'm one of those guys. I went to Tony Robbins this year, which is a huge thing. And I'm hoping to go to Date with Destiny later in the year. And I read all the self-development books and do all the podcasts and things like that. And I'll be honest, sometimes I struggle with it. It's not always positive stuff, but you just have to be able to, number one, take a step back and look where you were 12 months ago and say, man, I've actually come a long way. Even though I'm not where I want to be, I've come a long way. But every morning I just try and start out with the right frame of mind. One of my biggest things in the morning is I've got to go work out. So I get my juices flowing, get in the right frame of mind. And I just always have to be grateful for what life has given me thus far. And, I always try and be better and get out of my comfort zone, like you said. And by getting out of my comfort zone, I've really been able to benefit and move my life forward.
No, that's great. That's great. And I'm so glad you brought up gratitude because it's so critical. It's foundational to everything. So what have you had to give up to make this happen?
Yeah, a salary where I was making, well into the 6-figure numbers. And now we're living off of one salary as a family, which, we'll get by for now. But I mean, that's one of the biggest things is back then I didn't really have to, not that I didn't, but budget myself for all the things that I have to budget for now. I've got to be really careful of what I spend on and how we live our life so we can make sure we set it up for the future. So I would say that's the biggest thing right now.
Nice. What's that behind you on the wall? What is that? Is that motivational stuff or is that organizational?
It's both, actually. And on the top here, I have a couple of quotes that I live by, and actually from
what are they?
From Tony Robbins, just 2 millimeters further. He always talks about you're just 2 millimeters from getting there, and I relate that to
the gold. Yeah.
Yep, I was just going to say that book, 3 feet from gold. So don't give up when you're just 3 feet from it. If you cannot, then you must.
If you can't, you must. Yeah, love it.
And then one of the biggest things I took away actually from Tony Robbins is don't negotiate with yourself. If you commit to doing something, do it. Don't think, oh, I can't do it. Should I do? No, just do it. Just do it. And once you get in there and do it, you're in it. So you might as well go full out. So
that's awesome. I was just being interviewed on another show with a friend of mine that I met in the Tony environment in Fiji at Tony's Resort 20 years ago. True story. His name's Rock Thomas, super guy. And I was just asking him if he was going to date, because I'm thinking about going again, Date with Destiny in December. And guys, you know how I feel about Tony. If you can see him, just go do it. Trust me, while he's still speaking, just do it. So are there any books that have helped you along the way here on the motivational front?
Yeah, Miracle Morning. I know a lot of people say that one, but it was one that changed my life. And I'm actually reading his new book now, The Miracle Equation, which is really great as well. But it got me waking up earlier in the morning and starting my day off right. And I think those things are so impactful on someone's life to make sure your mindset is ready for the day at hand.
Yeah, no question. Yeah, Hal's a wonderful guy. I had him on the show, and Hal Elrod is the author of Miracle Morning, and that's one of the gifts my love language is gifts, and that's one of the gifts I give all my students is that book. And Powell, who we were talking about, who got you going on the meetups, he's one of my students. I think he's been, how long? Do you know how long he's been doing that every day?
I think he's well over 500 days in a row now, which is it's just incredible. It might be even longer that he may be on 2 or 3 years or 3 years.
Yeah,
so
he's
maybe
killing
1,000.
it. Yeah, because you got to get up early to do that, but it's had such an impact. I mean, it certainly had an impact on his life. I think, he's gone from 50 or 100 doors to 600 or 700 since we've met, and just killing it. In fact, he and I have even partnered on a deal. So tell me about a mistake that you made, or maybe you did in that first deal or in your real estate career period. Anything come to mind, a defining moment or a mistake?
Yeah, it was really with the lender and not just trying to do it on our own. We would just, everything that we do going forward, we're going to have a team on. And I don't think it was really being greedy. It was just trying to do it and get it done. And we thought that the deal was small enough, but looking back, I just would have built the team earlier in advance. And because we have that team now, we're going to benefit going forward. So it's just build your team before you even have a property under contract. Know who that team's going to be. And it's a team sport. That's what everyone says. And there's no greater truth. I mean, it really is a team sport. And the more people you have on your side, the better you're going to do in this industry.
Yeah. No question. No question. And again, that's why people keep coming back to my events. By the way, guys, I'm going to be in Baltimore, September 27th, 28th, 29th. Just if you have any interest in this business at all, you need to be there. Did you get benefit from it, Kyle?
Huge benefit. I mean, you're the reason why, I didn't tell this story earlier, but before I started going to your event, I could not speak in front of people. And wow. You pushed me to start a meetup, and you can ask Lolita. I was shaking in my boots the first meetup. I was like, I don't know how we're going to do this. I'm so nervous. I went over my script 100 times, and now here I am. I'm talking on podcasts. I have a meetup. We had our yearly event. And so, I'm still nervous when I do it, but I'm definitely a lot more comfortable. And so it's really brought me out of my comfort zone and made me grow as a person. So I 100% suggest going to Rod's event. You'll not only learn about multifamily, but you'll learn about how to utilize your mindset and really push yourself to be at greater levels.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I did not know that was a struggle. And guys, you guys know that the life of your dreams is on the other side of a little bit of discomfort. Not a lot, just a little. It's not the end of the world, but that's how you build what you want. Well, listen, brother, thanks for being on the show. You've added great value, and I'm sure that I'll see you again very soon.
Definitely. Thanks, Rod. I appreciate it.
Take care. All right, buddy. See you.
Hey, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my channel. And if you listen to podcasts, join me on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to those podcasts. Just search for Lifetime Cash Flow through Real Estate Investing.
Any investment opportunities mentioned on this podcast are limited to accredited investors. Any investments will only be made with proper disclosure and subscription documentation and subject to all applicable laws.